These are both NFL players, ex-NFL players. 60-year-old NFL player, and this is an 83-year-old player.
Kevin Ellison wasn't the biggest or strongest football player at USC, but he was the ideal from 2005 through 2008. The smarts to earn an economics degree, the toughness to overcome 3 knee surgeries, the legendary work ethic, and of course, the ferocious hits. He played 13 games for the NFL's San Diego Chargers in 2009. The Chargers cut him after 1 season, his career faltered, and problems emerged in 2012 when he set his apartment on fire. He claimed God told him to do it. He cycled through jobs. He went on and off medication for bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. He lived at his mother's house in Inglewood. Late one night in October 2018, a car hit and killed Kevin as he walked along the Interstate 5 freeway in the San Fernando Valley.
He was fun. He was warm and expressive.
He was always happy. Smiled a lot. He made other people happy, that was the best thing about him.
He liked to eat a lot. We have stories of one of his brothers or sisters finding him in the closet with a loaf of Wonder Bread one day.
He just had this personality that, it was welcoming and people wanted to be around him.
The most beautiful smile and the most beautiful eyes ever, and they just light up when he smiled. And he really cared about people.
I'm not gonna say that, but he was my favorite brother.
This one, you can certainly see there's shrinkage. The brain is very small. There's a lot of space between. These ventricles are gigantic. So no question, this is an impaired person. Just looking at the surface of the brain, you can't be sure that there's any abnormality. We'll have to cut into it. Oh, he has very large ventricles. That is a very large 4th ventricle, and also he's lost a lot of pigment laterally. It's starting to look like an impaired brain.
CTE is a devastating neurodegenerative disease researchers believe is found in the brains of people who have experienced repeated head trauma. They could be victims of domestic violence, members of the military, or football players. The disease can only be definitively diagnosed after death. Researchers have found the disease in scores of deceased players. Many of the names are familiar: Junior Seau, Dwight Clark, Frank Gifford. Kevin's family wanted to help find answers. A few days after his death, they decided to donate his brain to be studied by researchers in Boston.
It has a very distinct pathologic signature. It tends to affect certain parts of the brain.
As it progresses throughout your life, it can cause problems with cognition, problems with mood, problems with behavior. And the number one thing is changes your personality.
The process is the family calls our brain bank numbers. They will arrange for a local person to go out to the funeral home where the person is and have the brain and the spinal cord removed. And then it's air freighted to our labs. Under the best of circumstances, it usually takes 2 months to process the brain. But because we have a backlog and we can't even get to it right away, that's wow. His ventricle is very large. Yeah, it's notched. Even his hippocampus and amygdala look too small. Ooh, so now we have a better chance to look at that membrane. First of all, it's really irregular. The corpus callosum is thin, but then this membrane should be that white, and it should be nice and straight, and it's all gelatinous and irregular. It looks damaged. Then we make our routine blocks. We take our standard sections from the 29 to 30 areas. It goes through a series of processing, gets processed into wax. They'll be cut on a microtome into extremely thin slices, and those thin slices will be stained with a variety of stains and immunostains. And then the ultimate result is this box of slides. And we'll look through these, and this will form the basis of the pathologic diagnosis. And that's done completely independently of what the clinicians are doing.
And then all the families, they go through this kind of long, iterative process where we gather a bunch of clinical information. We gather medical history, psychological history, substance abuse history. We gather a history of their cognitive, behavioral, and mood symptoms, what kind of symptoms they had, what was the course of those symptoms. And they do this through over-the-phone interviews. They do this through online questionnaires.
And they basically, in a sense, paint a picture of what this patient had. And in a sense, they come up with their own clinical diagnosis, and we try to we show them our pathologic diagnosis, and hopefully the two correlate.
The purpose of this is to move us closer to being able to diagnose the CTE during life and figuring out the specific symptoms associated with it.
You know, this is the biggest brain bank in the world by far that is interested in traumatic injury to the nervous system. We're getting more and more women's brains. Traditionally, we've gotten very few, but we're now starting to see some women cheerleaders, soccer players, cyclists, and they're coming in.
There's a million reasons why you don't want to believe this is true. If you're a parent, no parent wants to believe that they put their kid at a risk that they didn't know. If you're an ex-player, you don't want to believe this because you don't want to believe you could be at risk, and you don't want to believe you're going to watch some friends suffer with this. If you're a fan, the best part of football used to be the big hits.
I never expected this amount of rage, and it gets almost irrational at times. You know, I can see sort of this irrational rage against the work.
I've had a million people tell me we've ruined the big hits for them. And a lot of people tell me that we've ruined Sundays for them because they can't enjoy football in the same way.
Part of it is it's just so ingrained in our culture. We love these sports so much. I'm just the bearer of very, very bad, unwelcome news. That it's very unwelcome that I'm female, that I'm saying this to basically men, and I'm saying, you know, this is dangerous.
We need to figure out who's at risk, what are the risk factors, and that's just incredibly motivating.
When we actually do this, I think the passion all of us, you know, all my colleagues as well as the staff bring to this, is we all know that there's a loved one, a person who passed behind this case.
The doctor said that was very aggressive for a man his age. Had a lot of lesions in the brain. CTE, you know, shows up more the longer you play football and at the higher levels in which you play football. And Kevin started when he was 8 playing tackle football, and he made it to the NFL. So
it hasn't changed how I feel about football. I'm more concerned about young people playing football.
watching it for me right now it's hard.
People love watching it. People think these guys are demigods most of the time, and they make a lot of money.
The players sacrifice a lot by just being out there, even though they choose to play. And I just think we owe them more as a society to take care of them.
That joy that I used to enjoy, that I used to do watching it is kind of gone away a little bit because I'm always thinking about, you know, what is this hit doing to the head?
Usually try to catch a little football here and there, but I'm often just trying to see how they're talking about concussions, if they're acknowledging concussions, how they're handling return to play.
I used to love football. I mean, I still see that it's a wonderful sport to watch. I mean, I get it. I mean, it's the beauty of football is the strategy plus the skill, the athleticism.
CTE is real, but it's real in everything. You can get it from any contact sport. Yeah, I'm sure you had CTE. I mean, like I said, I'm sure I have it. You know, I have multiple concussions from playing football. I'm sure, I don't know what the level of it, but football has opened a lot of doors for both me and my family and my brothers. And football is not the reason that Kevin developed a mental illness. This direct link from saying CTE and football gives you mental illness, that's not something I'm ready to say, absolutely, the science is there for it.
We can't ignore this. We can't jeopardize these young individuals' lives. I really want us to do something about this disease. I don't think this should be happening. I'm a doctor.
Football still has a bright future if we make a lot of changes, some of them that might be hard, to make the game safer. I am trying to provide the people who make those choices with the information that will help them create a brighter future for the game, and that brighter future means not creating CTE in all these players like we have been.
I cry all the time. He used to have a pass, so he'd get on the train or buses. So every time the train, you know, I see that, you think of him, I think of the 212 bus on La Brea. You know, I see young men walking down the street in hoodies, I think of him, you know, because that's kind of what he did. He moved around a lot, seemed to make him feel better.
He couldn't sleep one night, and I was ready to go out to work, and it was concerning. So I just said, hey, get in the car, and I just drove him around for hours by the beach. And so he could sleep. so he could sleep.
So I was driving yesterday, and I was telling you it was in Pittsburgh, and, you know, just driving, you know, you start crying. You're driving, you just start thinking about him, because it's, I mean, my little big brother.